Fairy tale team up Robin Hood and Gretel sends the famous Zenescope archer and the famous Zenescope witch hunter to upstate New York to investigate a rash of adopted children disappearances. We're going to talk about it in our review right here. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of fairy tale team up Robin Hood and Gretel from Zenescope Entertainment. In this review, we're going to talk about what's going on in the issue, what did we like, what we didn't like, a little bit about the art, and a final score. So make sure you stay tuned to the end for that. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification, and make sure you stay tuned to the end for the final score. Can't stress that enough. Let's talk about the credits first. This issue is written by Honor Vincent with art by Daniel Main and Alessio Mariani, colors by Grostieta and Maxflan Araujo, letters by Taylor Esposito, and the main cover, cover A, is drawn by Igor Vitorino. Okay, let's dig into the issue. We start off with a brief prologue where an elderly couple are sitting in a foster adoption agency. And the old lady named Miss Rhea and the old gentleman by the name of Mr. Chris are sitting, but they're acting a little bit strange, a little bit twitchy. But a pair of siblings come out and they're all excited about being adopted. However, one of the older kids at the adoption agency, a girl by the name of Cassie, notices something's very strange about this old elderly couple because they keep coming back week after week after week and adopting more kids, but nobody ever sees them again. The adults she talks to don't seem to be bothered by this, and we find out why exactly. As soon as Miss Rhea and Mr. Chris get those two new kids home, we find out that Miss Rhea is actually a witch by the name of Avarice, and Mr. Chris is her familiar, a large ogre-like beast with horns growing out of his eyes. They put the kids in cages, and Miss Rhea, who is really a witch named Avarice, is able to extract the life force out of these kids, which is a little bit different than the witches we've seen in Zenescope in the past, because usually the witches get their power from taking the hearts and eating them out of their victims. Then we cut to Robin Hood, who is still training with Smitty down in New York City, and he's urging her and coaching her to start using some of her light powers to generate light arrows so that she can overcome the limitation of running out of physical arrows in the middle of a big fight. When they get done with training, she says, give me a mission. I've been cooped up here doing all this training. I need something a little bit to take my mind off things and stretch my legs a little bit. He notices that there is a report of adopted children that seem to be going missing up in upstate New York, which is the same agency that we saw in the prologue. And Robin Hood goes up to figure out what's going on, posing as a reporter. When she gets to the agency, as soon as she starts asking pressing questions, the adults start freaking out, and you can see that they're under some kind of glamour spell. And she decides to take off and investigate the elderly couple because Cassie pulled her aside and said, "This is what's really going on. I can tell you the truth." And she certainly does. What she doesn't realize is that when Robin Hood leaves the adoption agency and heads to the house where the witch and her familiar are holed up, Gretel is also on the hunt for a witch because she's felt the depression of dark magic in that same area. And so Gretel basically comes up right behind Robin Hood as she gets to the house. Robin Hood goes in, tries to find out what's going on, and the witch makes herself known in her full form and starts attacking Robin Hood. Gretel comes up right behind her through the broken through door and starts casting spells, and the two of them manage to destroy the familiar. But in the fight, Robin Hood lost a lot of her life energy to Avarice, and now she's I won't say an old woman, not decrepit in any way, but definitely much more senior and struggling to keep her vitality and energy in check. They regroup later at Smitty's headquarters to try and figure out what to do next, and Gretel and Robin Hood decide that their next stop is to go to the underground portion of New York City where a lot of refugees from magical environments and people with magical talents tend to hide out and make themselves scarce from the outsider world. And this includes a lot of magical beasts like ogres and whatnot. Robin catches up with old friends Emily and Emmett, who we've met in prior adventures, and they decide to tag along to help out. And then they eventually find, yes, there is indeed a house down in the underground where Avarice is hiding out and keeping all the children she's since kidnapped. The heroes enter the house and are met with a coven of witches that Avarice has been collecting and training. The fight gets pretty dynamic and big and loud and full of all kinds of magic. And then there's a final battle to decide the fate of Avarice against Robin Hood and Gretel for the survival of these small children. And, of course, it's a superhero comic, so it's going to end just about the way you would suspect. If you're wondering why that description was so long, this is a double-sized issue. The cover price is $5.99, which is a bit on the hefty side, but you definitely get your bang for the buck when it comes to amount of content. So the story feels like it takes up all the page spaces as it can. You don't get a lot of fluff. There isn't a lot of wasted, drawn-out scenes or decompressed storytelling. You get your money's worth, but it is a double-sized issue, and you're going to pay extra for it. What do we like about this issue? This is a much better team up than the last team up that they did with, I think it was Robyn Hood and Belle. This one turned out a lot better because the two characters converged at a particular conflict for a very practical and common sense reason, and they work well together, they fight well together, and once they get together, they basically carry it all the way through to the end. So generally speaking, lots of action. The nature of the antagonist or the villain sits right within the wheelhouse for Gretel, but it also makes sense for the location of where Robyn Hood operates. And pacing's good, dialogue was good, just all around, this is a solid superhero story. What didn't we like about this issue? Honestly, the piece that we didn't like which is more a matter of taste and preference than an actual flaw, is that the villain was very generic. This is just another witch in a series of witches that Gretel has confronted over the course of over the last several years. The fact that she was able to extract life force without eating the hearts, I guess, is an okay twist, but it's not particularly memorable or substantial in any way that sets this villain apart from every other witch she's faced. Generally speaking, it felt, I won't say generic, but it was a pretty standard vanilla type of villain. Okay, let's switch gears to the art. So you have Daniel Main and Alessio Mariani, who are one of the stronger artists for Zenescope's catalog of artists that they usually tap. The art looks good to great. Character designs are on point. Some of the magical explosions and battles look fantastic. There's a lot of eye-catching stuff going on, and Gracietta's and Max Flanarajo's colors are excellent. So you get a lot of change of scenery, different colors, different lighting, different venues, different character developments, and a lot of monsters going on in this one as well. So overall, it's a nice showing by the art team. So final thoughts. What do we think about Fairy Tale Team Up Robyn Hood and Gretel? Lots of great action, great pacing. The story makes sense. The two characters who really don't often work together in general work together really well here. And the challenge that they're confronted with makes sense for both of their character types and the type of villains that they usually come across. So overall, good setup, good story, good execution all the way around. The only minor down point is that the villain felt a little generic and standard, which didn't make them particularly memorable in any sense. Therefore, we're going to give Fairy Tale Team Up Robyn Hood and Gretel from Zenescope Entertainment an 8.5 out of 10. Good solid score, good superhero action, and if you're looking for something that's Zenescope but a little bit of a different twist than you're used to, this is probably a good pick and a good recommendation for you. What do you think about Zenescope Heroes? Do you like Zenescope Heroes? Do you think that they're on par or competitive with the big two, or do you think they stand apart but maybe not as good for different reasons? I want to know your opinions about Zenescope's cast of characters. Let us know in the comment section. Otherwise, stay tuned through the outro for the next review.